Insight number one, how to develop neighborhoods without gentrification. GC, tell us what you think.
Gentrification is a word that means different things to different people. And to me, it's kind of an old school way of the way things were done when neighborhoods were developed. And it was very much kind of economic driven. And the people that lived in those neighborhoods that were not thought about, were not consulted, were not a part of the solution. And what happens is development happens because of where those neighborhoods may be. And all of a sudden, the rich history and the culture and the pride of that community is no longer there. And that's not a really good thing. If we think a little bit beyond just the economics of it, right? Love for your community, love for your neighborhood, pride in your community is such a positive thing, and it does equal dollars and cents as well. But if you look at how many neighborhoods have been developed, especially in fast-growing populations, Jacksonville is a fast-growing population, so this is a challenge that we'll face here in Jacksonville as well. Majority of them, the developers come in, they see an opportunity to make a lot of money, and they don't really work with the stakeholders in that community. We intend to be different. We are different. We think that there's an opportunity to do right by the community that we have in our neighborhoods, and also for our clients, our investors in JWB to make a profit as well. We realize that if JWB does not do the development there, somebody else will, and we have the opportunity to do it in a way that is better for all involved. And this starts by working with those stakeholders and understanding what is it that is important for them. If we have this understanding that there is an economic opportunity that people will see and that the neighborhood will change in some way, we can work with the stakeholders to understand what do they want out of this, right? It's impossible to say that things are going to stay the same, right? There's economic benefits, good things can happen here. But what do you want? What is high on your priority list? And actually work with the stakeholders in those neighborhoods. And that's what we try to do.
I love everything you're saying, GC, because being a Miami guy, I don't know if it's the capital of gentrification, but I've seen it happen over and over again. What people really took an issue with was folks that were buying the property just for the property's sake without trying to be a part of the community or improve the community in order for them to want to be a part of the community, right? So like Steve Wernick, who we had on the show not that long ago, he kind of specializes in this, right? He was part of Wynwood that also gentrified. And then he started redeveloping Wynwood Norte in a smart way. And it's everything that you're talking about. It's bringing in the stakeholders so that you are not just improving the property values as much as the livability of the neighborhood, so that the folks that buy these homes or live in these homes are using the local business, using the local schools, using the local amenities, and really becoming a part of that fabric. And that's what I see you guys doing, at least outwardly in Arlington, where you got the mural, you're redeveloping that square, you're bringing in grocers and stuff like that. You're not just improving property values, you're improving the livability of the neighborhood, which I think is important. Is that how you approach it?
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a term for this. It's a different way from gentrification. The term is called Within-trification. And that really means working with those stakeholders. And if you look at this and you think, okay, well, a developer is going to come in here because they're going to make a lot of money, right? That developer can make decisions to give some of that money back to the community, to give them what they want. And then you can have a lot of really raving fans. So here's a few examples of things that JWB does in some of the neighborhoods that we work with. I remember an example, this was a number of years ago. This was in the Jacksonville Beach community, and we had a lot of lots that we were buying in that community. And we reached out to the stakeholders there. Many are just community leaders. They don't need to have a title. It's just that they're community leaders in these neighborhoods. And we sat down and we talked with them. And one of the things they asked for was help donation to a community center that happened to be in that area. They said, this is a place where a lot of our friends and the youth in the community come. And we have, I don't remember what the specific thing that we did for that community center was, but we spent money to help renovate that community center. And that meant the world to this community, right? Yeah. And then for JWB, what does that mean? Well, as we are developing those lots in that area, right, we still work with the stakeholders there, and we say, listen, are the facades of this house looking the way that you guys like, right? The parking situation, are we making sure that we're doing this well so that this isn't inhibiting parking for everybody? Are we bringing too many cars to the street, right? We're working with those community stakeholders. And then there's other things that the community has to like what you're doing. If you really make the community mad, that community has to more or less sign off on things called variances when you're trying to develop properties in a certain way, the neighbors have to abide. So I guess I'm trying to point out that it's not just like JWB making a donation to do this. Like, we believe like this makes more sense because we're giving back to the community. And at the end of the day, this makes more money for JWB in the long run as well. Another really good example.
You kind of skirted over this idea of this makes more money, JWB, and then you under your breath said in the long run. I think that that's the key, right? The experience that I have of gentrification is people that are thinking in this like 2 to 3 year time cycle, maybe under 5 year time cycle. I think that that's the big difference. This idea that JWB is in Jacksonville, it's not going anywhere else. Since you have put your stake so deep into the ground and you want to be here forever, and you don't want to go outside of this market, you need to make sure that the things that you're doing are sustainable, as opposed to just like make a quick buck and move on, which is what I saw happen in Miami from all this type of stuff.
And if you own a lot of property in that neighborhood and you plan to hold on for a long time, I don't remember what the donation that we made to that community center was, but you divide it by 100 lots in that area. And that makes a ton of sense to do versus if you're just in for 1 lot or 5 lots or whatnot to get in, get out in 2 years, then you don't make those same types of decisions.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Plus, you're also developing the relationships of the contractors and subcontractors and all the folks that live and work in that area, because this is kind of how you manage properties to a certain extent, right? You count on the goodwill of the neighborhood to be your eyes on the ground to a certain extent because of that flywheel that you have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's a totally different way of approaching it, man. I think it's cool.
If you like that long-term example right there, let me share something with you that is a lot more expensive for JWB, and also it's an example of a much more long-term approach. So this past month, at the end of every month, my business partners and I and our accounting team sit down and we review all of our properties that sold, and we look at what was our profit on each property. I would imagine you would expect us to do that. And I knew that Mike had sent in this question, and there was one specific property that was exactly what he's talking about, was exactly what this concept of within-trification is. When we're sitting down and we're talking with some of our neighborhoods, we're asking what type of structure of the houses. It's very important that the historical nature of the facades of homes match what was in that neighborhood. And the way that generally homes are developed now and built now, they have 2-car garages and they might be 1,600, 1,700 square feet. And you try to maximize that space on a lot. Well, that's very different than some of these older neighborhoods that are being redeveloped. And so we sat down with the stakeholders and they said, listen, we want the historical nature of our homes to be here for the new homes that are developed. And we said, okay, what does that mean? And they said, well, we want the facades to look like this. We don't want to have garages. And we said, okay, talk to us about that. Long story short, I mean, that's a very big economic cost to a developer. Because JWB will make a lot more money per house when we have a 2-car garage and 1,600 square feet on a lot. And so in some of these neighborhoods, you'll see lots, you'll see homes that are, this one happens to be 1,148 square feet. It's a brand new model that JWB built so that it retains the historical context and significance of that neighborhood. It doesn't have a garage, right? When you total this up, that costs JWB over $20,000 in additional costs between what it costs to build that model, and then also the opportunity cost of what we could have sold that house for, which would have appraised for a lot higher if it had a 2-car garage and it was bigger. So it cost us over $20,000 on that house. I will say it cost us between about $5,000 to maybe $20,000, maybe even $25,000, depending on lots in that neighborhood. But that's what we're doing right now in some of our neighborhoods. So it's a significant cost to JWB. And how do we make that decision to do that? Well, it's not just because we're nice guys and we want to do right by the community, right? It's because we have so many investments in that area, right? And we want to be a long-term partner there. To your point, right off the bat, right? A developer who's just coming in, sort of like a mercenary coming in for a quick flip, is not going to be holding on to these properties long-term, is not going to meet with the stakeholders year and year and year and year in and year out and decades later. And they're not going to make those types of decisions. That's what's going on right now. And that's really Within-trification at work.
Love that, man.